Hello everyone, I am VAOS and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. Before we begin, I want to shout out to today's sponsor, the weekly Kerman issue newspaper. Link in the bottom of the video. It's a newspaper that keeps you up to date on what's new with Kerbal Space Program, possible updates on Kerbal Space Program 2, and different things of this nature on subreddit or Reddit in general. I read it. I thought it was good. Again, link is at the bottom of the description below. Shit. Mouth English now speak. Disclaimer, they're not actually sponsoring me or anything. I just, always wanted to say that. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. This time is going to be me teaching you how to build an SSTO simply and how to fly it. Now there are plenty of places you can go to that's going to give you a bunch of math and just a lot of math. But hopefully after playing this game for a decade, give or take, I can share you some of my wisdom. This will not be an in-depth video. This is just to help you out if somehow you got stuck along the way. In building an SSTO, that is. Now, when building an SSTO, the first thing you have to worry about, the most important thing you have to worry about is drag. For example, when it comes to a fuselage, this works. This can work. This doesn't work. When building an SSTO, you want it to be slicker than snot. You want it to be sharper than a Gillette razor. You literally want it to be a knife in the sky. So the things that create a lot of drag that are obvious are engines and wings. Sure, everything creates its own drag, but engines and wings are the biggest, ugliest, frickin' blah. Also cargo bays for some reason. They are also a horrible culprit in creating drag. Now, of course, you're gonna need a cargo bay in order to put stuff up there. You're gonna need wings in order to get lift. You're gonna need an engine to get up there anyway. So these particular types of parts that create a lot of drag are somewhat unavoidable. All you can do is minimize them. So if you're having problems getting into space using your SSTO, maybe you need to cut back on the wings. If for some reason you're going for a B-2 bomber look, that's probably your problem. So let it go.
What the hell? Let it go, just let it go.
Another thing to also worry about is weight. When it comes to an SSTO, the lighter the better. So if you can find new ways to make things lighter but still be effective, do that. Case in point, sometimes it's good to use something like a delta wing. It holds fuel, it's one part, and altogether it's, with the fuel and everything, it's about 2 tons. Per wing, that is. However, just by using a bunch of these little liquid fuel fuselages and some small nose cones and a delta wing, you can save 0.3 weight and still get the same amount of effectiveness. But VAOS, you said that one part is giving you drag all the time. Wouldn't one part be less drag than a bunch of little parts altogether? Actually, you'd be surprised. You can get more drag out of a larger, heavier part than you would a bunch of little parts. Try it, do some testing. You'll see what I'm talking about. As long as your parts, like for instance, this little thing that we made right here, as long as it's aerodynamic, meaning it's got a pointy end in the front, it's got a long cylinder and a pointy end in the back, KSP is going to read it as a very pointy, slick thing that would create very little to almost no drag. You'll see me use this kind of concept a lot when I build small crafts, small SSTO crafts. Now typically I don't normally use the Mark II cockpit, only because it can be kind of hard to find the center of mass and center of lift and get them so they don't move a lot during flight. But I know that a lot of you do use the Mark II cockpit in some of your designs for the smaller SSTOs that you guys build. So I will try to find a way to make it so that the center of mass stays mostly put where it's at regardless of how much fuel you have. The markings of a good SSTO is an SSTO that you don't need to wish wash fuel back and forth in order to get the COM or center of mass in the right spot. Because what this means essentially is that if your craft is completely out of fuel when it re-enters, you're screwed. Your fuel then becomes more or less dead cargo weight, something that you absolutely need to stay on board at all times in order to make sure your center of mass is correct. That's gonna kill your delta V and it's gonna kill how much you can actually get up there. Because now you got this dead liquid fuel oxidizer or whatever weight that you have to transfer up into the front so that you don't die upon re-entry. So the markings of a good solid SSTO is one where you do not have to worry about the center of mass at all, ever. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. It's a little hard with the cockpit the way it is, but we're going to do this. We're going to take our adapter right here that usually carries oxidizer and liquid fuel, and we're going to get rid of all of that and lock it out. But VAOS, that means it's dead weight. It's no good. No, hey. Shh. Quiet. Listen to me. It serves a very valuable purpose as an aerodynamic end piece, cutting our drag literally in half. And that's what we want. So it serves a purpose, a very valuable purpose. A purpose that if it did not serve, we would have a hell of a time trying to get up there. Now let's look at our center of mass and our center of lift. That's nice. Gonna make things a little easier. Now typically this would be probably considered a slightly larger passenger craft, but I'm just kind of making it in order to serve a point when it comes to drag and weight. The fact that you can lift this whole fuselage is considered cargo. It's considered dead weight. It's useful for a purpose, but at the same time, it doesn't serve any purpose when it comes to fuel and all the circuit stuff. It's our cargo. This is our payload. So while we're putting on our pieces here, this is what you want to do. You want to make sure that the center of mass always stays where it's supposed to, right there. So you take it off, put it on there, center of mass does not move. For this particular vessel, we're going to go for a T800 fuel tank. I have no idea why it keeps on asking me why I'm John Connor. Well, let me make sure this is right here. Okay, so that's not moving. So we're going to put an aerodynamic cone in front and a rapier engine in the back, and then we'll put this on there. So there we go. Put a cone on here. Now, why am I putting an aerodynamic nose cone on here instead of something pointier? I've done the research, and you can do the research too. This is actually heavier than this. Okay, light, heavy, light, heavy. If we were traveling through the thick atmosphere only, then this would probably be your best bet for like jet fighter or whatever. But the fact is that we're not staying in the thick atmosphere. We're actually leaving it the entire time. So you don't want as much aerodynamic cutting force, I guess you could say, or puncture force, I don't know, as you do weight reduction, because this is not going to stay in the atmosphere for very long. So its usefulness is going to die out pretty quick. The fact that the mass of this is 0.03 and the larger advanced nose cone is 0.07 means that this thing right here essentially weighs about 3 of these. That's a lot. Like I said, if you don't believe me, just test it out for yourself. I've been doing this for a very long time. Okay, now we get to rapier engine. See, the rapier by itself is great. It's fine. However, it does create somewhat of a lot of drag. So what we're going to do is a little trick. We're going to grab our aerodynamic nose cone and put it on the back of the rapier. Now, I know you're scratching your heads, but check this out. I'm going to take the nose cone and I'm just going to shove it in there a little bit. Not all the way, just enough so it disappears from the... There we go. You can still see it right there. I know some of you are throwing your crosses at me like blasphemy. It's a tiny little part clip modification. It's not the end of the world. What this essentially does is it closes this piece so that the game sees it as aerodynamically sound. It reduces drag by a lot. Now, I do use the mod called Restock. It gives me a whole bunch of cool color options that I can change the skins on these things, which is really nice. I highly recommend it. It doesn't give you any new parts. All the parts are still stock, but it just gives you a bunch of new skins. Anyway, so we're going to take this off and put it back on. Just make sure that it's right. Yep, there we go. Hardly moving the center of mass. Use the move tool, move this out. We're going to put our little creation right here. Same thing, make sure it's not moving. Alright, now we're going to take our wingy bit, put it right there. You always want to try to have the center of lift just behind the center of mass. This might be too much. This is bad. Why is it bad? Well, it's very simple. The way that this works is like a dart. Try throwing a dart backwards. It's going to automatically want to flip around where the heavy pointy bit is and hit its target. That's because the fins create drag, or in our case, lift. So if you have the wings back here, guess what's going to happen? It's going to want to flip so that the heavy bit is in the front and the draggy lifty bit is in the back. So we'll just correct that just like this and you're good. All right, and I'm going to pull this in just like that. Get nice and snug. Same thing with this. Nice and snug. Now our center lift is going to change a little bit when we put on the elevon. There we go. Grab this. All right. Oh wait, this might be too big. Yes, that's too big. Grab this one. Yeah. Here we go. Nice. Oh, that changed the center of lift just a little bit. So I know this is going to create just a little bit more drag, but what we'll do is we'll grab a smaller wing. Structural wing type A actually looks good, and we'll put it up towards the front. So I'm going to place it on my other delta wing. Snap it on there. Use the move tool. Now, yes, you can use the, I think it's the 1, 2, 3, 4 keys. Just gonna, but I'm just clicking it because I'm an old fart, and I used to do that a lot before I realized that you could use the numbers. Okay, so that looks nicer, much nicer. And the best part is, because I didn't attach this wing directly to the body, I can just click the delta wing, and I have control of the entire wing. Whenever possible, try to attach all your wingy bits to one part. That way, all you gotta do is click on that part, and you can move the entire wing set. It really sucks when you have a bunch of wings and they're all separate parts, and you gotta move every single one. I just no. Okay, now we're gonna need a tail to stabilize the craft. Now, to save on weight, you could have used like a deluxe delta winglet or something of that nature. Sure, why not? However, for the sake of the rule of cool, which a SSTO must adhere to, because I've seen some pretty ugly SSTOs. Not saying that the creator behind it did anything bad. I'm just saying that they needed some work. But I'm going to get a little bit of a giant tail here to not only help with control, although that is kind of overkill, but it's going to hide something, which leads us to our next bit, and that is an air intake for the rapiers. Now, like I said before, I like to not use this Mark II cockpit whenever I can, because I can actually put an air intake on the very front of the nose. However, in this instance, I don't have that option because I'm trying to make it with the Mark II cockpit, so we got to put the air intake somewhere. But VAOS, why can't you just put it where the aerodynamic nose cones are and make it look like this? I mean, this right there. Granted, that does look cool. However, in this game, that's also overkill. Yes, with one shock cone intake, you can power 4 rapier engines. So you can see that 2 for 2 rapier engines is a bit overkill. Also, it helps with drag. So what we'll do now is we're going to put our shock cone on here, shakalaka, and then put it right there, and then just kind of bring it in just a little bit and a little bit more. Okay, good. And there you go. However, we're missing something. Now, I've seen a lot of people use the Clampotron, like so, and they start putting stuff in there. They start putting monopropellant. They start putting solar panels. They start putting batteries and fuel cells. And then they close it up and they're like, there it is, it's done. There's simply one problem. KSP, the game, does not recognize the Clampotron as a cargo bay. So while it does hide them, all the little pieces that people put in here, while it does hide them visually, technically, they might as well be on the outside of the ship, producing drag and, well, just drag in general. Remember, drag is an SSTO's worst nightmare enemy. Try to minimize it the best you can. So that being the case, and by the way, you can test this out, simply put a solar panel in there, the extending ones, close it up, put it in the real world, and if you can still extend it, even with the doors closed, then it's not reading it as stowed away. Which, if you actually put it into a cargo bay and try to do the same thing, it wouldn't work because it's considered stowed away. So, where do we put a cargo bay on this sucker? Well, here's the thing. A cargo bay for like one of these inline parts weighs 0.25 tons. That's actually a lot when it comes to small SSTOs. We're going to try to not. We're going to try to not. Plus, it would kind of make the fuselage longer, which would make it not as pretty. We're trying to keep this SSTO looking good as well as functional. Form follows function, but remember the rule of cool. It does apply. However, we have a service bay that only weighs 0.1 ton. 0.25? 0.1 ton. You want a 1 ton? So I'm going to put the service bay right here and the shock cone right there. Now, for those of you who are like me, we like realism, we like realistic stuff. It's really hard to swallow when it comes to shock cone air intake, and then suddenly right behind it is your
trunk space.
However, don't worry. For those of us who have creative, imaginative minds, just kind of pretend. That doesn't matter, no. Just kind of pretend it's sort of like the intake is kind of like hourglass shaped a little bit, or maybe it goes down into a funnel, and we can just kind of use that empty space around there or something. I mean, these are Rapier engines, so they don't need direct air like a jet engine. Rapier engines are kind of a spin-off of the Sabre engine, in which case they're technically rockets. They run off of liquid fuel and liquid oxidizer, or liquid oxygen, basically. Technically, the air comes in, it gets compressed, it gets super chilled, turns into a liquid, and then stored into a tank, which is then pressure fed into the rocket. So one could imagine the air going into this point in this spacecraft, getting super chilled and compressed, then pumped into one of these tanks, and then shot out the back. Shot out what? Shot out the back as a flamey ball of power. Flamey ball. Flamey balls. What? So anyway, we're just going to open this up and start filling it up with all kinds of goodies. Everything inside the surface bay will be considered airtight and aerodynamically stable. This will help dramatically with drag with whatever we put in here. Now there's going to be a few tip secrets that we're going to put in here, such as a probe core. Then we're going to immediately take the probe core, use the rotate tool on it, make sure our toggle snap is on, hold down shift, and then tilt it downwards. Whoa, too much. Just hold down shift and tilt it downwards. Bit. There we go. So this is a good time to talk about re-entry. I've seen a lot of different re-entry techniques. Some of them clean, some of them good, some of them like a bat out of hell. Other re-entries just consist of people completely losing control and flipping everywhere. And they all use the same excuse. It's so that we can spread the heat around evenly from the craft. No, you just built a really bad SSTO, that's all. You can't hide from that excuse anymore. So the reason this probe core is tilted downwards a little bit is thus. When you're about to re-enter Kerman, you can set the probe core on an action group from 1 through 10, 1 through 0, whatever. Hitting that action group, control from probe core, probe core, and because the probe core is tilted, it's going to suddenly see the nose of your craft pointing slightly down. So during re-entry, if you have the craft set on SAS and set on follow prograde, your craft is naturally going to want to do this. Bing, just like this. Its nose is going to be slightly up all the way down as the tilted probe core follows what it thinks is the prograde. So now you're following prograde with the tilted probe core, which forces your entire craft slightly upwards the entire time. So the entire time you go through and do re-entry, your nose is going to be constantly up the entire time. All the way down, real nice and easy. Just make sure to switch it back to your cockpit so that you straighten out after that fiery flamey bit is all done. Now I've heard of people saying something about ditching the probe core entirely and just putting an action group on the elevons, making them do something like this, I guess. There are a few, I'm sure that works in some situations, maybe all situations, I don't know. But I do know this. It only works when the craft is in thick enough atmosphere, which means the entire time you start burning up, you're actually nosediving into the atmosphere. So you're nosediving, you're burning up, you're nosediving, and then finally your wings start catching up a little bit with the atmosphere as the atmosphere gets thicker, and then maybe you start pitching up a little bit, in which case you still don't have control because they're stuck in that position. So Lord help you if you've got the elevons a little too high and your nose goes completely up, and then the control aspect of it I see it would be very chancy. There wouldn't be much in the way of control because you kind of stick to a certain deployed angle, which you'd probably have to die a few times in order to get it just right. And like I said, I'm sure it would work. I'm positive, so positive that it would work. If it works for you, it works for you. I'm just throwing that out there. So if that works for you, gosh damn it, give that person a medal. We're gonna put some monopropellant into here. Try to give us a little bit more monopropellant life. I'm gonna use a tiny little RCS fuel tank right here. There we go. Stick it in the back. Stick it. Just stick. Thank you. Don't need a whole lot. Just enough to maneuver in place and dock. We've already got monopropellant in here. Well, how much? Oh yeah, we got 15, so we're good. 15 here and then 20 there. We're plenty. Now we need a way to create power. So in this part, you can do whatever you want. You can put solar panels that kind of extend out and kind of make it look a little cool, a little extender outer thing going on. Me personally, I don't want to ever have to open this up, so I'm just gonna put one of these fuel cells in here. We only need one. That'll generate all the power we need. Just whatever I do, I need to make sure there's fuel to power this thing. There we go. Just put it on top, no problem. Click it, start fuel cell, so it's always on. And then I'm gonna have extra power. I'm gonna use these batteries right here. I love the reskin on this. It's beautiful. And I'm just gonna put them right there on the side. Make sure my symmetry's on. And there we are. So I've got plenty of battery power if by some reason I run out of juice. Plenty of backup battery power. And I'll go ahead and close that. But for me personally, I like the re-entry probe core idea. It's constantly adjusting itself to follow the prograde automatically. You don't have to worry about it. And it does it while it's in space right off the bat before it even hits the atmosphere in order to control its descent. So it's already controlling itself in the vacuum of space before it even touches the atmosphere. Real nice and easy, and you don't have to worry about it, like I said, because it's automatic. But anyway, let's go ahead and close this. Now then, to increase our control, we're actually going to go and make our wings a dihedral design. That means we're going to click on our wing, hold down shift, and just pop it up a little bit. A little bit of poppage, just that pop, 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 pop. There we go. So what this does is it kind of makes like a wide V. You'll see it in almost every single aircraft. I say almost because there's probably one out there that doesn't have one. I don't know which one that would actually be, but it's possible. VAOS, what does a dihedral design do? So basically, the left wing not only wants to lift up, but also wants to lift at an angle, kind of like this. And the right wing not only wants to lift up, but also wants to lift at an angle, like this. Both of them together are literally pushing against each other, helping keep the craft stable, or even more so than what this tail can actually achieve. So it's kind of like a bonus. So now if we did everything correctly, then this center of mass shouldn't move. Or if it does move, it moves very little. So let's test that out, shall we? This is all full of fuel, and this is with no fuel. Notice that it sort of moved a little bit, but not bad. That's fun. We can make that work. Fueled, not fueled. Fueled, not fueled. Now it's time to put on some landing gears. We're going to put the medium landing gears in the back. The craft is light enough to where I feel comfortable just putting them on the fuel tanks. Normally I put the landing gears on the actual fuselage if it is indeed a larger, heavier SSTO. This means that all of the weight of the SSTO is directly put on these landing gears, which helps in landing and takeoff. I don't have to worry about the stresses of the weight being transferred into the fuel tanks and then finally transferred into the fuselage, kind of making it a little bit of a twisty, bendy, bouncy thing going on. And for really, 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 really large SSTOs, very, 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 very heavy SSTOs, you want to try to minimize that bendy, twisty, bouncy thing going on. I'm not talking about the springs, I'm talking about the actual craft structure, regardless of how much Autostrut you've thrown in there. I've seen it happen. I've made it happen. Okay, so when you put the gears on your vehicle, always make sure that they're just behind the center of mass. If some of the problems that you've been having is takeoff, look at your wheels. If your wheels are way back here, then it's keeping the ass end of the SSTO from going down, allowing the nose to go up. Think of your SSTO as kind of a seesaw. You need that leverage right in the middle so that when you pull up from the runway, your ass end is able to go down, allowing your nose to pitch. And that's how you take off. If for whatever reason you had a wheel in the back, you try to pitch up, well, guess what? It's not going to be able to pitch up because that wheel back there is keeping your ass end from going down. I'm sure many of you who've played this game know this already, but for those of you who didn't, I hope this helps. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the gears, I'm just going to raise it up a little bit, try to get it in line with the front right there. I don't want to use the big gears because that means more weight and more drag. Now we need two more things in order to make this SSTO complete, and that is of course lights, which I love the light strip, by the way. I think it's a DLC, can't remember. So what I like to do is I like to put the light strips just above the windows right here. Then I'll use the move tool to rotate them ever so slightly. And I'm going to bring them down. The new reskin allows me to use white paint so they kind of blend in. I'll hold down Alt and click on the part which copies it, rotate it, and then do the same thing. I don't want them to completely disappear. I want to be able to see that light strip when I turn it on. These are pretty powerful lights, so they're going to light up the entire side of the craft, and it's going to make this unique little light strip effect just above the windows. Now for RCS. In this case, you can do whatever you want, but I have noticed a strange connection with SSTOs that have RCS and SSTOs that don't. And this connection acts like drag, but yet there's no indication that it's creating drag. It's very, very weird. SSTOs that I build that don't have any RCS are able to have more delta V left over than the same SSTOs that have RCS. I can't really wrap my head around it, but I'm sure one of you out there know what's going on. Because of this, I try to minimize my thrusters the best that I can. Now I could do something like this in order to minimize thrusters, and for some of you that might be enough, or that might be good. But I can tell you right now, having this strange looking thruster block sticking out from what's supposed to be an aerodynamically slender craft, it hurts looking at it. It's kind of like looking at a beautiful, sexy Ferrari and then there's a cardboard box taped to the side. So I can't do it. Sorry, not today. But why not use Vernor thrusters? Well, for one, we have monopropellant, so we might as well use it. And 2, vernal thrusters are heavy for a thruster. They're heavy. When it comes to RCS, there are literally 12 different maneuver types that you have to consider. Now, reaction wheels could cover 4 of these, but for the sake of realisticism, you want to try your thrusters to be able to do that. Try to make your thrusters be able to do that. So let's count them. We have forward, backward, up, down, left, right, tilt down, tilt up, roll left, roll right, turn left, turn right. So there's a lot to consider. However, with 8 place anywhere 7 linear RCS ports, we can cover all 12 of those maneuvers. This is sort of the easiest way that I've been able to figure out, while keeping the craft looking sleek, but also minimizing the visual impact of the RCS ports. Okay, let's look at our center of mass. We want some over here, and then immediately over here. Basically keeping the RCS ports away from the center at the same distance. That's a good placement. Now we just do the same thing on the bottom. Then we make sure our toggle snap is on and the rotate tool. Let's go ahead and grab them. Make sure they're tilted at a 45-degree angle. Hold down shift. There we go. Just make sure you got the X. The X marks the spot. Then you want to look above it, hold down shift again, and tilt it the other way, another 45 degrees. Another X. Do this with the rest of them. What you're essentially doing is you're building a RCS port system that covers everything everywhere. All right, now I'm just going to do some tucking in. Okay, so this kind of design helps us cover all 12 of those maneuvers, and it sort of hides it, so it's a little bit more sleeker. Make sure all your stuff is auto-strutted. If you don't know how to get auto-strut on, this is how you do it. Go into your menu, whether it's your saved game or all the way out, hit exit, settings, scroll down, and it's right under gameplay. It's called Advanced Tweakables. Make sure it's enabled. Click, click. Sometimes you have to be creative and you have to actually pick other parts other than just heavy part, but heavy part is sort of default, so you can go ahead and do that for now. There are some moments and times that I found myself having to actually do like root part or grandparent part because I had so many parts on the heaviest part that it literally bugged out. But for a small little craft like this shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so we've covered the basics of a simple SSTO. Design an SSTO that doesn't need to worry about fuel transfer for your COM. Check. Design an SSTO that uses all of its launch fuel, or liquid fuel in this case, saving all of its orbital fuel for when it actually gets up there. Check. VAOS, what happens if I want to fly once I get back down and re-enter and I'm not close to the Kerbal Space Center and then I have to fly all the way there? You can leave a little bit, okay? You can leave a little bit. Design your SSTO with a way to generate power. Check. Design your SSTO with the back wheels close to the center of mass. Check. Design your SSTO with a dihedral design for your wings. Check. Design your SSTO with only one shock cone air intake for your rapiers. Check. Design your SSTO with a re-entry probe core. Check. And finally, design an SSTO with very little dead weight or drag. I think we did pretty good, so that's a check. Alright, let's fill this bad boy up with killable, Kerbals. That's definitely gonna put some weight on the craft. Alright, number 1, toggle engine. Number 2, switch mode. Number 3, toggle cargo. Number 4, toggle service bay. I think that's everything. Number 9 will toggle our re-entry probe core, control from here. And number 10 we'll go ahead and click on our cockpit and control from here. Make sure we still have all of our Kergals. Kergals. Yes, all our Kergals are in their place. I think we were 26 tons. Now with all the Kerbals on there, we've jumped to 28 tons. So now that you've built your SSTO, I'm going to teach you how to fly it. I've seen many different types of ways of flying a craft, from going straight up and then across, from going up and down and up again, but there's one particular way that I've been doing for a very long time, and I think it's probably one of the best ways, or at least the most simplest, and that is to simply point the nose of your craft to about 10 degrees and then just let it fly. Now, depending on how fast your craft is, you may want to point to about 15 degrees or even 20 in some cases. But larger, more heavier craft, 10 degrees or even 5 degrees, depending on how really heavy it is sufficient. All right, brakes off. SAS on. Number 1, engine on, full power. I'm going to hit the caps lock, which allows for micro-controlling, and ever so gently pull up. There we go, about 10 degrees, gears up, and here we go. Typically it's okay if you want to wait for the automatic to switch from air breathing to rockets. There we go. It's okay. You're going to lose a little bit of delta V, but not that much. Typically, I like to also wait till you're about apoapsis height is about 52,000 meters before clicking on this little button down here called Prograde. $73,000 meters apoapsis height's fine. Okay, time to apoapsis is about 15 seconds. So I'm going to slowly start putting on some fuel here, some thrust. We want to try to get close to 0 as possible for the most bang for our buck. So as soon as my time to apoapsis actually starts to increase, I'm going to throttle down using the control key. So there it is. We have 36 meters per second delta V left. Woo! Not much at all. But then again, this is kind of a conceptual SSTO that we just kind of built, and this is its maiden flight. Okay, so now we're going to test out the RCS maneuverability by focusing on a Kerbal, aim camera, and controlling the craft and just kind of doing maneuvers around the Kerbal. Here we go. Alright, not bad, pretty good. Now it's time for re-entry. I do have a trajectories mod, which is something you definitely need. Give it a little gas in order to slow down, of course. If you want to slow down, just make sure you're pointing retrograde. One thing about trajectories mod is that it doesn't work very well for SSTOs, so kind of take its little X marks the spot with a grain of salt. We're going to go ahead and save right here. I don't really have time to aim for the KSC, so land will do. And remember what I said about that re-entry probe core, which we've put on our 9 action group, number 9. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. Notice the difference. See down here? That's the re-entry probe core. That's the cockpit. Re-entry probe core, cockpit. So what I do is I hit this prograde marker right here. Now the nose is continuously going to be pointed up just ever so slightly, helping us with control and slowing down. We're going to use RCS for a little while, and then when we start getting into the thicker part of the atmosphere, where our wings will actually have more control at that point, and not until that point, then we can kill the RCS. I'll go ahead and hit the caps lock. I call it micro control. I'm sure there's a name for it. Advanced control? No. Tippy toe control? No. Itty bitty control? No. So apparently we lost our heads there. Again. Okay, so since we were having a problem re-entering, obviously we weren't slowing down fast enough and it was burning up the craft. If you're having problems burning up in the atmosphere while re-entering, that's almost typically all the time it's the problem of not slowing down fast enough. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. We'll go into our re-entry probe core, hold down shift, and we're gonna click it over, say 2 more times. 1, 2, whoa, 2, there. Kind of an extreme angle, because that means that this thing is gonna look like this. 1, 2, 3. Not bad, I mean, Space Shuttle does something similar to that, right? Okay, let's hope that that slows us down enough, so that we don't die. Well, shit. I thought it was kind of weird that we only had 200 delta V left over, especially after the fact that we only had like 100 delta V left over. You know what? Everyone bailed on me. Why'd you all bail on me? Hey guys, it's not like you don't have any faith in this design, right? Well, the weight difference is really not that much, so we can keep on with the testing. We already know that it can get up here with a full crew, so getting back down should be pretty much the same thing. And we are ready for re-entry. In 3, 2, 1. Well, looks like that's what did the trick. We slowed down fast enough so it wouldn't burn up the nose of the craft. Perfect. Now it's time to land. Sure. Easy does it. Get over this hump. Okay. Nice and easy. Ooh, ooh. Easy. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. Alright. Really wish we'd slow down a little bit. Okay. Brakes. 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 We're getting to a hump. We're coming to the hump. Please slow down. Okay. Okay. I think we're good. I think we're good. I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. Hey. Can we park it up on this tip of the cliff? We parked just at the tip. That's funny. Just the tip. You know, I forgot to put a ladder on here. Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being a part of this channel. I hope this helped you out tremendously in trying to make your own SSTO. It was meant to be an extremely simplified how-to version of building an SSTO. But if anything, I really hope that you walk away from this video enlightened. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you really enjoyed it, consider subscribing. I try to upload every other day, as many times as I can. It's normally every other day, but there's been a lot going on, especially after the holidays, so maybe about 2 or 3 videos a week. But it's consistent-ish. I primarily make only Kerbal Space Program videos, but from time to time I'll throw out a random non-Kerbal Space Program video, just for fun. Thank you all again for watching. Love you all. Please stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye-bye.